Okay, folks, I'm going to do something a little different today. I'm going to review all 5 Super Sentai games released on different consoles, particularly the Famicom, Super Famicom, and the Japanese PlayStation. Now, before I begin the review, some of my fans who are not familiar with Sentai and Tokusatsu in general may be asking, what the fuck is Super Sentai? Well, considering I didn't give a proper introduction in my previous videos, I'm going to do that right now. The Sentai series began in 1975 in Japan with Himitsu Sentai Gaoranger, and would then evolve into the Super Sentai series in 1979, starting with Battle Fever J. Like Kamen Rider, this series is also part of the Henshin hero genre, but this one is more team-based. The basic formula for each show is an alien attacks Earth, they send out a monster each episode, 3, 5 or more people get special powers and team up together, and defeat the villain in 2 ways, on ground or using a giant mecha. On paper that doesn't sound like much, but once you watch it, you're gonna have a lot of fun with it. This series would not be released in American shores until 1987 with the short parody dub of Kagaku Sentai Dynaman on USA Network, and again in 1993 when the Super Sentai series would be adapted into Power Rangers. But unlike the American Power Rangers series, most Sentai shows contain deeper and more developed storylines and characters. Unfortunately for Sentai fans who are also gamers, when it comes to video games, only 5 of the games were released compared to the Kamen Rider and Power Rangers games, and most of the Sentai games are not so great. Not only that, the releases of these games are few and far between. And considering that Sentai is just as popular as Kamen Rider in Japan, I honestly don't see why there's a lot less Sentai games than Kamen Rider games. Before I begin the review, let me clarify that I will only use the Sentai names of all the characters in the games, not the Power Ranger names. If I review a Power Rangers game, however, I will use the Power Ranger names. For example, I will use the term MECHA instead of Zord.
Everybody got that?
Good. Let's begin. So the first game we're going to take a look at is Chojin Sentai Jetman, released in 1991 for the Nintendo Famicom, the same year as the actual series did. And this game was fucking awesome. When you start the game, you'll notice that it plays an awesome 8-bit rendition of the Jetman theme by Hironobu Kageyama. But you won't see the full intro unless you wait a while, and the intro is badass with the jet machines combining to form Jet Icarus, then combining again with Jet Garda to become Great Icarus. God, I fucking love it. Anyway, the menu is pretty simple. You have the main gameplay and battle mode. Battle mode is just a way to practice boss fights, nothing else. And when you start the game, you can pick your poison. Easy, normal, hard, and very hard. The latter 2 are shown by pressing A and B on the title screen first. Hard and very hard are the same as easy and normal respectively, but with only 1 bar on your life meter. And like Mega Man, you can start on any of the 5 areas you choose, with the 6th and final area to beat the game. And of course you can choose between any of the 5 Jetman Rangers: Red Hawk, Black Condor, Blue Swallow, Yellow Owl, and White Swan. Red Hawk and Black Condor use a sword, Blue Swallow and White Swan use a gun, and Yellow Owl uses a gauntlet. But no matter what character you pick, they're all fun to play as. Me personally, I prefer Red Hawk and Black Condor because of the big ass sword they use, especially Black Condor, who is my favorite character in the series. And the gameplay is exactly what you come to expect in a Sentai game. Just some good old fashioned beat 'em up gameplay, fan-fucking-tastic. You also come across items to collect such as hearts and birds, and the bird is used to do your flying attack, but please use it wisely. Once you get to the end of each level, you fight a kaiju as your boss, and that's when you use Great Icarus to fight him in an epic one-on-one battle. The bottom meter is used to do different special shooting attacks depending on how much is filled up. And you use these attacks by pressing the start button. A little awkward there, but it works. The 6 bosses you fight are Mirror Jigen, Camera Jigen, Bus Jigen, Light Armadillo, Dimensional Mammoth, and Semi-Maru. And when the kaiju's energy is depleted, Great Icarus finishes them off by using either the Bird Macer attack or Breastfire like Mazinger Z. and it's just epic. And once your life meter is depleted, you get to select another character, but if you lose all of them or Great Icarus goes down, then it's game over, although you can still continue if you want. And after you complete an area, you will receive a 4-digit password which you can use if you want to stop and continue at the level you want the next time you play. But the thing is, this game isn't really that long. It's only 6 levels and you can pretty much beat it in a day, so having a password system is kind of redundant if you ask me. So yeah, this is a really fun game. Everything that you want and expect from a Sentai game, especially a classic such as Jetman. And what's also great is that it has some kick-ass background music and sound effects to back it up. The only thing I don't like is that it's a little too short, but the replay value is so great, it really doesn't matter. I would play this over and over again if I want to, and best of all, most of the text in this game is in English, so it shouldn't be a problem for English-speaking gamers at all. I give Chojin Sentai Jetman for the Famicom a gold. Unfortunately, things start to go downhill from here. The next one I'm going to review is Kyoryu Sentai Zyuranger, also for the Famicom. Released in 1992 like the actual series, Zyuranger is the first Sentai series that was adapted from Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. Now I know what you're thinking. Allie-RX, didn't you review this game already? Well, to be totally honest, the original review sucked and I was new to reviewing at the time, so here's a much better one. Right off the bat, you'll notice that the main menu and intro isn't as good as the Jetman intro. Sure, they got the music right, but all you have is the menu and stills of the 5 Zyurangers posing. That's it. Lame! Anyway, in the menu screen, you have the choice to start the main game or play the mini games. The mini games are also in the regular game, except here you can play with a second player. Like Jetman, you can choose between easy and normal difficulties as well as entering your passwords and continue where you left off. However, there is no secret code to play the hard and very hard difficulties, and instead of a 4-digit password, you have Tyrannoranger posing in 3 different ways. And again, the password system is redundant. This game has only 5 levels and it can be beaten in less than an hour. What's the point? So before you begin, you'll notice that this game has quote-unquote cutscenes, and I use that term loosely because it's an 8-bit console. I can't think of a better term anyway. But in between levels, you're going to see these same faces a lot, and it gets really repetitive after a while. Oh, and you can't select the level like in the Jetman game. In the first level you play as Saber Tiger Ranger, in the second level you play as Terra Ranger, in the third level you play as Tricera Ranger, in the fourth level you play as Mammoth Ranger, and in the fifth level you play as Tyrannoranger. Now we begin the gameplay. What is wrong with it exactly? Well, let's put it this way. If you were to take gameplay from the Jetman game and water it down, the Zyuranger game is pretty much the result. Your main objective is to beat each level as well as the bosses in them, and shoot the enemies that get in your way. And during the middle of each level, you get to collect these medallions, and really, all they do is restore your life meter if it gets depleted. But you know what's the most irritating thing about this? After you collect them, all you get is a brief cameo of the Guardian Beast. That's right, folks. Just a cameo. Lame! You don't play as them, you don't use them in gameplay, you don't even see animations like the Jetman scene in Jetman. They're just there. Also, you get to enter these doors where you meet Barza and get the Ranger's respective weapons in each level to use. Each Zyuranger has a unique special weapon just like in the show. Saber Tiger Ranger has the Saber Daggers, Terra Ranger has the Terra Bow, Tricera Ranger has the Tricera Lance, Mammoth Ranger has the Mammoth Axe, and Tyrannoranger has the Tyranno Sword. This is good for when you're fighting the level's boss, but the boss fights are so easy and predictable, you can pretty much beat them in no time. The bosses in this game are Pleprecon, Buck-Buck, Totpat, Grifforza, and Bandora. Buck-Buck, Grifforza, and Bandora are the easiest of the 5 bosses because all they do is friggin' stand there and shoot! And guess what happens when you defeat each boss? All you see is a still of the Zyurangers holding the Howling Cannon. The screen flashes white and gray, and that's it. Nothing special. Oh, and Dragonranger's in this game too, but like the Guardian Beast, he's just there. You don't fight him, you don't play as him, all he does is ask you if you want to play one of the mini games. And that's bullshit because he's my favorite character in the show! Anyway, here are the mini games. You have the Daijujin Dragon Caesar Pong game and the Gaoranger Lamy Hot Potato game. In these mini games, if you win, you gain an extra life and it's over. If you lose a life. Lose all of them and it's game over. There's another one, but it requires you to understand the Japanese language, so I won't talk about that one. And while the Pong and Hot Potato games are kind of fun to play, I'd much rather see these characters in a one-on-one battle like Jetman's boss battles. Oh, and you want to know what the ending is like? Take a look. Yes, folks. The ending is the same stills of the characters you've seen a bajillion times already. Lame! It's lame, especially compared to the Jetman ending. All in all, Kyoryu Sentai Zyuranger for the Famicom is a mediocre game and a huge step down compared to its predecessor. I give this game absolutely nothing. The next one I'm going to take a look at is Gekisou Sentai Carranger for the Super Famicom. Released in 1996 after a 3-year hiatus in video games, Carranger is a parody Sentai that was adapted for the more serious Power Rangers Turbo. And unlike the previous Sentai games, this game was released for a special cartridge by Bandai called the SuFami Turbo. SuFami is a portmanteau for Super Famicom. This cartridge was made by Bandai to be able to link data between two games. The left slot is the game that you want to play, and the right slot is used for additional data. However, not all of Bandai's games support data linking, and Carranger is one of those games. Really, if they weren't going to have data linking in this game, they could have released it as a regular Super Famicom game, but whatever. Let's begin the review. So in the main title screen, you only get to start the game and choose between stereo or mono sound. Nothing to talk about here. The title screen doesn't have the Carranger theme, but it plays something that sounds quite similar. And of course you have the 5 Carrangers to choose from. No Zyuranger and no VRV Master though, just them. Red Racer, Blue Racer, Green Racer, Yellow Racer, and Pink Racer. Some have their own unique abilities. For example, Blue Racer can slide like Mega Man, and Green Racer can float after jumping. And of course they have their own unique weapons. Red Racer has the Fender Sword, Blue Racer has the Muffler Gun, Green Racer has the Engine Cannon, Yellow Racer has the Side Knuckle, and Pink Racer has the Bumper Bow. You get these after you pick up a sword on the ground. You can also pick up the Booster Cannon as well as the Speeder Machine to blast moving trucks that get in your way. And obviously the Health Cups are used to restore your energy. Your main objective is to clear the stage, beat up as many Wumpers as you can, as collect as many parts as possible to get the 5 Ranger vehicles that form RV Robo. But sadly, you don't play as RV Robo in this game and you only see him briefly. I'll talk more about that later on. Like Zyuranger, there's only 5 levels, each with 5 bosses. The bosses you fight are BB Donpa, MM Mogu, NN Nereko, KKSU, and Dynamo. Looking at this game, it makes you think it's a fun game. However, the problem is that this game feels too easy, and again, it's way too short. I know it's a kids game, but one thing's for sure, Sentai's target audience in Japan is at least 6 or 7 years old, and at that age, you expect at least some challenge in a game. This game can easily be beaten in a day, and there isn't much replay value like Jetman on the Famicom. And to be totally honest, I find the bad ending a lot better than the good ending because in the bad ending, something actually happens. The Earth explodes, there's fireworks, and Zelmata and Dynamo look down upon its destruction. In the good ending, all you see is RV Robo posing with his sword, and that's it. So really, what's the point of collecting all the parts when the other ending is better? But if you don't collect the parts, that makes the game even easier. So there really wasn't much to say about this game. Carranger on the Super Famicom is okay, but way too easy and way too short. I give this game a bronze. Fortunately, things start to improve once the series moved to the Sony PlayStation. The next one I'm going to review is Hyakuju Sentai Gaoranger, which is based on the Sentai series that was adapted for Power Rangers Wild Force. This game was released 4 years after Carranger on the Super Famicom, which is 2001. So here is the game. Really, there isn't much to talk about here, and considering it's a PlayStation game, I was pretty disappointed. So to start, this game has a lot of cutscenes, and if you're familiar with Gaoranger's storyline, you'll find that it's pretty accurate to the show. Not only are the cutscenes great, but you also see some nice FMV sequences from the show. Mostly henshin sequences and sequences where different power animals combine together to form mecha like Gao King and Gao Icarus. Now for the gameplay. When you start, it's pretty much what you would expect from a Sentai game. A beat 'em up game with a bunch of monsters to fight, but I personally feel this game requires some improvement, and I'll get to that shortly. In this game, you have a total of 5 levels with a final boss battle afterwards. In each level, you fight a bunch of Orgets until there are no more, although in level 5 you fight Yabaiba and Sui instead of the Orgets. After they're defeated, you fight an Org monster on ground. The Org monsters you fight are Boat Org, Bulldozer Org, Shuten, Loki with Gal Hunter, and Rasetsu. The last boss is an original villain for the game, and I have no idea what his name is since the game is in Japanese text. For the controls, you press square and circle to strike an attack. You can also perform a combo to use the Gao Main Buster. Pressing triangle will allow you to do your special attack with another Gaoranger, but you can only do this once. After that, it turns into using the Gao Main Buster, but don't use the Gao Main Buster like that too much because it'll drain your energy. Use the combo instead. After you defeat an Org monster, you get a brief FMV clip of the Gaorangers using their Haja Hyakuju Ken, and then the Org monster grows into giant size by either growing on its own or with the help of Sui. This is where the mecha battle begins. Now I'm happy that they brought back the mecha battles since Zyuranger and Carranger didn't have them, unlike Jetman. It's a step in the right direction, but they made the mecha battles in such a boring way. See, the mecha battles are not a straight up brawl where you just go around, fight, and possibly destroy buildings. When you start, all you do is move side to side or swing your sword, avoiding the Org monster's attacks, and these things are for the most part easy to avoid. Once the circle flashes on the Org, you dash and you switch to first person view. All you do there is swing your sword and punch when he's right in front of you. Special attacks happen, but you don't press any button. The game does it for you, and these things happen spontaneously. The other criticism I have are the fact that you can only play as Gal Red. You can't play as any of the other 4 Gaorangers, and they only assist you when doing special attacks. Hell, you can't even play as Gal Silver, and he doesn't assist you in battle either. You only see him briefly after defeating Loki. Pretty lame. And the Orgs are pretty easy to beat, so fighting them multiple times gets tedious after a while. So this is another alright Sentai game. It's got potential, but it doesn't feel quite finished, and honestly, I don't think it's something to look back at and play again unless you're a big Gaoranger fan. I give Gaoranger for the PlayStation a bronze. And the last one I'm going to review is Ninpu Sentai Hurricanger, also for the PlayStation. Released in 2002, this game is based on the Sentai series that was adapted for Power Rangers Ninja Storm. Ninpu Sentai Hurricanger! So here's Hurricanger. This uses the exact same engine as the Gaoranger game, but it's been greatly expanded with more modes and features such as an improved story mode, battle mode with up to 2 players, and shooting mode. I'll get to them in a moment. They've also addressed a lot of the issues that the Gaoranger game had. And like Gaoranger, this game also has cutscenes in its story mode as well as FMV sequences from the show where they either henshin or combine their shinobi machines to form their mecha. So as you can see, this game uses an updated version of the engine used in Gaoranger. The improvements they did are the addition of individual energy bars on all the monsters, a special meter where you can do special attacks depending on how much is filled up, and the ability to select and use any of the 3 Hurricangers, the 2 Gaorangers, and Hurricanger. So that's a total of 6 Rangers to play as in story mode. A huge step up from Gaoranger. The mecha battles still aren't great, but it's a solid improvement over its predecessor. A thing they added is before you switch to first person view, you button mash to prevent going back to third person view. Plus, like in the ground battles, you also have a special meter. This meter allows you to use different Karakuri balls and other special attacks. Oh, and you can also do more combos during ground battles. This game has 6 levels. You usually start off a battle by fighting a bunch of Kenin Magirapas, but sometimes you might face other Jakanja villains taking their place like Furabijo and Windenu, Sargane and Manmaruba. And in one level, you fight the Gaorangers before they become allies just like in the show. And sometimes you're in a shooting game where you attack Magirapas with your shurikens. Remember the bonus stages in Shinobi on the arcade? This is pretty much like that. After that, you fight a Jakanja monster as the boss in each level, as well as 2 main Jakanja villains. The bosses you fight are Jishakumon, Shiranzu, Gamma Jakushi, Chuzubo, Killer Kurong, and Satorakura. After you defeat them on ground, Windenu sets out her copy giant to duplicate the monster like in the show, which of course leads to a mecha battle. However, sometimes a monster could grow on its own by using its own special powers. Oh, and Gaoren and Allie-RX make a cameo in this game in the special story mode. And with the updated gameplay, that means there's little to no reason to play the Gaoranger game. Another mode in this game is the one-on-one fighting modes, and it works really well since this game has combos. So I guess you could say that this is a fighting slash beat 'em up game. Plus you can play as the monsters and villains in this mode, which is a really nice addition. Criticism I have on this game are the autofocus when fighting more than one monster, the lack of the special meter in one-on-one modes, and the fact that this game is a little short. Other than that, I think it's a solid improvement over the Gaoranger game, although it doesn't top Jetman on the Famicom in my opinion. I give Hurricanger for the PlayStation a silver. And that's it, folks. That's all the Super Sentai games released on home consoles. For now, at least. And like I said earlier, that's a pretty disappointing number for a show that's just as popular as Kamen Rider in Japan, which gets a lot more games than Sentai does. There's another one called Super Sentai Battle Daiso that came out recently in 2010, but it's a card-based arcade game, and the only way to play it is to fly to Japan and find a Daiso arcade cabinet, unless you're somehow lucky to find one in the States. So I guess you could say that the Sentai series has taken quite a long hiatus in the video game front, until recently. Yep, that's right, folks. A 6th Super Sentai game will be released on home console. This time, it's going to be a crossover game called Super Sentai Battle Ranger Cross, and it will be released exclusively for the Wii, so you can definitely expect an episode of Wii reviews covering this game sometime in the near future. This game is going to play very similarly to the games like Dynasty Warriors, and that alone shows a lot of promise. However, only 5 Sentai teams are confirmed so far: Gaoranger, Engine Sentai Go-onger, Samurai Sentai Shinkenger, Tenso Sentai Go-Sager, and Kaizoku Sentai Go-Kaiger. I hope that these are not the only ones in the game, because that would be another disappointment. Hopefully we'll see teams like Bioman, Maskman, Liveman, Jetman, Zyuranger, Dairanger, Carranger, Time Ranger, and Decoranger. I'm not expecting all of the 35 teams, but at least 10 to 15 of them. So with that said, I hope you enjoyed my review, and to my longtime fans and subscribers, stay tuned because the next review marks the return of awful games.